Okay, the next malacha we're going to cover is what's called kibus, which is the malacha of laundering. Now we learned all the malachas they found were done in the Mishkan, that's why they're forbidden. So where did they, in fact, in the malacha itself is called malabin. Malabin actually means making white. When they had the curtains of the Mishkan, they had to dye them with the various different colors. So in order to dye material, first you have to bleach it to make it white. And then after it's bleached, then you can dye the material. So in the Mishkan, they actually dyed the various different materials. So from there, the Chachamim derived and said biblically that any type of cleansing materials, okay, either with a cleansing agent or with water or removing dust by rubbing it together or removing a stain from fabric, we'll talk about each one of these. All of those are biblically forbidden to do on Shabbos. But as we'll learn, there's a difference if it's a material that absorbs, like wool, linen, cotton, or it's a material that doesn't absorb, like plastic or vinyl. Okay? So let's say you have a stain, some wine spills on a plastic tablecloth. So there's no problem cleaning it because it wasn't absorbed. Plastic doesn't absorb. So it doesn't absorb within it. Same thing we'll learn, it applies to leather and various different things, but certain instances you still can't clean leather or plastic or vinyl, whatever it is. But generally speaking, there's three. Now, according to halacha, just soaking a garment in water, not doing anything, just soaking it into water is called cleaning it, which is biblically forbidden. According to many opinions, even if it's a clean garment and you soak it in water, it's still called cleaning the garment on Shabbos, because you're still cleaning it better than it was. Therefore, for instance, you're not allowed to pour water on a stain. If you have a stain on your suit, on your shirt, on a cloth, tablecloth that's not plastic. So all those things, just pouring water on the stain itself is called washing it on Shabbos, which would be biblically forbidden. Huh? We'll get into that. That's what, right now we'll go one thing at a time. Right now, soaking stuff into water is biblically forbidden. Yeah.
Wait, if I wipe it with a napkin, is that also?
Again, we'll discuss all the details. Right now, let's go in an orderly fashion. Just soaking water, a garment that's an absorbent garment, okay, in water or pouring water on a stain is not allowed. Now, it doesn't apply to, like we said, it doesn't apply to plastic, rubber, leather. Nylon, according to most opinions, has the same din as leather because it's not an absorbent material. So therefore, what happens if you got a stain on a tablecloth or you got a stain on your garment, you're not allowed to put water on the stain on Shabbos. According to Allah, you can't even go like this, because then, I mean, that's what people do always during the week, right? You got a stain, this is what you do, if there's no water available. So that wouldn't be allowed on Shabbos because that's cleaning a garment that the stain was absorbed within it. So we said soaking a garment even, now what happens if somebody is soaking garment in dirty liquid, like mud water, whatever. So then you're not cleaning the garment because it's not getting cleaned, it's getting dirtier. But first I give an example. You wash your hands from okay, you just wash your hands on Shabbos. Now you take a towel, a cloth towel, and you dry your hands. So why you're getting the towel wet? Why isn't that called cleaning the towel? Why are you allowed to dry your hands on a towel on Shabbos? The answer is because you're not cleaning the towel, you're making it dirtier. When you do, the more you dry your hands on the towel, the dirtier the towel gets. So you're not only not cleaning it, you're making it dirty. So you're not doing the malacha. But if it's, let's say, I'll take you an example. What happens if you have a stain on a towel, okay? And now you want to clean the towel with liquid. That you couldn't do. But drying your hands on the towel, they say because your hands have oil in it and dirt and whatever it is, So therefore, it's not considered cleaning the garments. You're dirtying the garment, therefore you would be allowed to use the towel on Shabbos. Or even to dry dishes on Shabbos, dishes that you're allowed to wash on Shabbos. So then you could dry them. You're making the garment wet. You're not making it wet. You're getting it dirty. Next is what?
If plastic is non-absorbent and you can clean it, you have guests
Right.
who can clean it. How is it that a plastic Tupperware gets to absorb milk like inflation then?
There's two different types of absorption. Okay, is metal absorbent? No, but through heat it is. In other words, if you pour milk, cold milk, into a meat container, right, and it's cold, and it's not there for 24 hours, so halachically you wash it off, and it's good because it never became absorbent. There's a halacha that's called kavish k'mavushul, that if it's there 24 hours, it's considered as if it was cooked. Because after 24 hours, it does become absorbed. So that's a rule in halacha, kavish k'mavushul. Kavish means it's soaked for 24 hours, as it didn't like it's cooked. But metal is not absorbent. We're talking here about cold water. Okay, cold water doesn't make things absorb. Now, if it's a material like plastic, vinyl, rubber, leather, things like that. So, for instance, if somebody would have a dirt spot on their shoe, okay, you can't rub it hard. We'll learn soon, but you can take a little bit of water and wipe it off. You can't rub it hard. It says because that's still cleaning it, because leather doesn't absorb. Or, for instance, if you have a stain on the garment, okay, so we'll learn soon. Just going like this is called cleaning on Shabbos. But what happens if it's a stain that's not absorbent in the material? For instance, you have lint. Lint is not absorbed in the material. You can, go like this and take it off, right? So lint, you would be allowed to take off from a garment on Shabbos because, again, the halacha of kibus, of laundering, is when it's absorbed within the garment and the material and you're taking it out. But if it's not absorbed, it's on top of the material, then, so if you have a dirt spot on your shoe, it's not in the material, it's on top of the material, so you're taking it off. We learned that Chacham still said you can't rub it hard and things like that. But that would be allowed. Okay, so, soft material, okay, now, scrubbing would, scrubbing, that would apply to even materials that don't absorb. Because when you're scrubbing it, you're actually taking out even from deeper inside the leather, the rubber, or the plastic than it would be otherwise. So that you wouldn't be allowed to rubbing hard. But just removing, even with a little bit of water, that would be allowed.
On a leather, you said?
Huh?
On a leather?
Leather also, you can't rub hard, but you can just take a little water and take it off. Or just... Now another part of this, part of the cleansing process, there's a halacha on Shabbos that's called schita. Okay, you can't squeeze something liquid out of something that it was absorbed within. Okay? So let's say, normally the nil schita is you can't squeeze fruits, you can't squeeze lemons and olives and grapes and the various different types of fruits that are normally squeezed. Can't squeeze it into liquid or into an empty container. But there's another aspect of schita. What happens if I have a garment that was soaking before Shabbos in water, and now I take it out of water and I squeeze it? That's also called, besides schita, the other malach of schita, this is also kibus. Because when you have a garment that's dirty, soaking in water, and you squeeze it out, you're doing another malach. You're cleaning it because you're squeezing the dirt out of the liquid. So if somebody would squeeze a garment that's wet, and you'd squeeze it out on Shabbos, so then you're getting two things. You're doing schita, the malach of schita, which is squeezing juices or liquids out of it, and you're doing the malach of cleaning, of whitening or whatever it is. So you can't, in fact it says in Shchunar, interesting thing, if you come home after a rainstorm, yeah, and your garments are sopping wet, It says in halacha you have to be careful when you take them off. Because you shouldn't take them off in a way that you're going to be squeezing water out of the pants, let's say. So you have to be careful, hold it by the, take it by the end, and we'll learn more details in that. You can't take a wet garment, a garment that's wet, like in the rain, and sometimes you want to get the water out of it, so you shake it, the water should, and Shabbos that would be cleaning. Because again, you're taking the water out of the material that was in the water, so you wouldn't be allowed to do that because then it's called cleaning the garment.
Plastic raincoat?
Plastic raincoat doesn't apply, that you could do it. But because plastic doesn't absorb, we're talking if you have your pants, you're not wearing a raincoat. So then you have all those things you have to be careful with. It says that Alter Rebbe talks about in Shechnochos, what?
What about tea bags? Tea bag.
No.
When you take it out,
You're not squeezing it.
but in the water.
You can't squeeze, but you can't squeeze water out of, you can't squeeze a tea bag. We'll see about all these things about schita. If you have a lot of hair gathered in one place, like somebody has a lot of hair on their head, or a beard, you have to be very careful when you dry it on Shabbos. Because even though, and this is, we'll see about materials also, in this din, if we get there today. But even though water is not absorbed in the hair, but because the hair is tightly put together, and the water it looks like it's trapped in it, and that's when you squeeze the beard, the water is going to come out. So midrabanan, the Chab says it's exade of schita. Even though you can wash your beard, you can wash your face. It's no malacha of kibbutz on the body. But you have to be careful. That's why a lot of from people that would go to mikveh don't go to mikveh on Shabbos, because they have beards. It's a problem with chita. I mean, those that go to mikveh on Shabbos have to be careful how you dry your hair, if you have a lot of hair, or how you dry your beard. And you have to be careful that you're not squeezing. Or I'll tell you where this is relevant to this din. What happens if you have... Okay, you can't use a sponge on Shabbos. A normal sponge on Shabbos you can't use. Why? Because you're squeezing the liquid out of it. And then you're doing schita and you might be cleaning the sponge, when you squeeze the liquid out. But certain types of sponges, like these nylon brushes, that are not very tight together, like here, they're like loose. Those you're allowed to use on Shabbos. It's nylon. It's not or plastic, whatever type of material. It's not absorbent. It's not absorbent, and it's not exada like here because they're not put close together. If there would be steel wool, for instance, steel wool, which is mamish very tight together, that you couldn't use on Shabbos. It's not absorbed in it, but it's like here, that you wouldn't be allowed to squeeze out of it. But if it would be a material, you're not cleaning the material also, because you're not squeezing. If you have a plastic sponge, a dish sponge, right? That's not like steel will hold tightly together, so then it's not a problem using it on Shabbos, because you're not squeezing. And you're not cleaning. It's not absorbed in it that is getting clean. So all those things would be allowed on Shabbos.
Rabbi, can you use axe spray on Shabbos?
Not now. Okay, so you have, let's say, these bottle brushes, you have baby bottles, you have those brushes that you clean. Again, those things you're allowed to use them on Shabbos, because they're not tightly together, the bristles, and therefore and it's material that doesn't absorb. Okay, so the bottom line is, soaking is forbidden, but that doesn't apply to non-absorbent materials. Scrubbing is forbidden, that applies also to non-absorbent materials. I'll give you an example. There's, you have vacuum cleaners.
Yeah.
Good. And then you have carpet sweepers. The manual carpet sweepers. You have dirt on the floor, you know what I'm talking about? They don't have them too much nowadays. When you grew up, everybody had them, more than vacuum cleaners. So you have a carpet sweeper. That carpet sweeper you're not allowed to use on Shabbos. It's not cleaning the carpet, but the truth is, those brushes are actually, it's like rubbing the ground, the carpet, or even the floor. So that would be like rubbing hard that you wouldn't be allowed to use it in Shabbos. Even though it's non-electric, it doesn't actually wash the carpet, but it's cleaning the carpet, because bottom line, when those brushes do it, you're going to get dirt out. There's not just lint that you're picking off the garment and things like that. So it's a whole different story.